The blood on Elijah's forehead wasn't his. The SWAT officer who slammed him into the sidewalk never checked for a weapon, because there wasn't one. In front of 6 teachers and 20 terrified students, a 14-year-old was handcuffed on the floor of his middle school cafeteria for walking in late. The principal wouldn't speak. The officers wouldn't apologize. But Elijah never forgot the voice in the crowd that said, "He fits the description." That was the moment the truth broke him. But it wouldn't end there. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. At exactly 8:12 a.m., Elijah Myers pushed through the side door of Briarwood Middle School. His hoodie clung to his shoulders, damp from the morning rain. He was 14, quiet, a brilliant math student. And right now, he was 12 minutes late. The hallway was mostly silent, except for the hum of the fluorescent lights and the squeak of his wet sneakers on the polished tiles. He wasn't running. Elijah never ran in school. Every black boy knew better than to run where people were watching. He turned the corner toward the cafeteria, where homeroom was being held today. His ID was slightly crumpled in his fist, signed by Ms. Rivera from the main office. The cafeteria was humming with students and noise inside. The teachers sat against the back wall, lazily watching. Elijah walked in quietly, not drawing attention. But someone had already noticed. "Is that him?" A voice came from the hallway radio. "Roger that." Suspect just entered through the east door. Black hoodie, gray backpack, medium build. Alone. Matches description. In the security booth, Officer Darren Holt squinted. He was new to the school, brought in after a recent break-in involving older teens who had broken into nearby lockers. He didn't care about hallway passes. He cared about patterns. Suspect in cafeteria. Move immediately. Holtz's voice was calm. Elijah was walking toward the back of the classroom when the door swung open. "Get down on the floor. Hands off. Don't move." There was shouting. Lunch trays crashed to the floor. Students froze, half-eaten. Some ducked under tables. The entire cafeteria went from calm to chaos in seconds. Elijah turned, confused, and was slammed face-first into the linoleum. A knee on his spine. Cold metal on his wrists. The sound of his breath catching. Glasses sliding across the floor. He didn't fight back. He didn't scream. He just asked one question. "What did I do?" There was no answer. Instead, Officer Holtz whispered into his radio. "One in custody. Still checking ID. Suspect on the way." The principal arrived 90 seconds later. Mr. Keller. Pale. Nervous. Sweating. He didn't ask if Elijah was okay. He didn't ask for a hall pass. He just asked, "Are we sure it's him?" The 6 teachers watched silently. No one moved. A few students were taking notes. Others were crying. Elijah was lying on the floor, handcuffed, bleeding from his hairline, surrounded by adults who wouldn't say his name. Only he's docile. SWAT backup never arrived, because the threat had already been neutralized. And when his mother arrived 20 minutes later, he was still in handcuffs. She didn't scream. She just looked at Mr. Keller and asked one question. What description? He couldn't answer, because he wasn't there. The official report didn't mention the cuffs. It didn't describe the bleeding or how long Elijah had been left on the cafeteria floor. It didn't mention that no weapon had ever been found or that no crime had ever been committed. Instead, it said, "Student detained as precautionary response to suspected intruder alert. No further action recommended at this time." But by the time Elijah and his mother left the school that morning, the damage had been done. Outside the principal's office, Elijah sat on a plastic chair, his knees scraped, his wrists bruised in ovals that wouldn't fade for days. His mother, Nina Myers, paced silently. Not angry, not loud, just focused. Her silence was sharper than shouting. The principal, Mr. Keller, avoided eye contact. He repeated the same phrases again and again. "We had to respond to a potential threat. The officer was acting on credible suspicion. We're sorry if your son felt targeted." Felt targeted? Nina finally said, her voice low. He was thrown to the floor and cuffed, in front of his peers, for being 12 minutes late. Mr. Keller fumbled with his pen. "We're reviewing the incident." But that wasn't true. They weren't reviewing anything. By 11:45 a.m., Elijah had been issued a 3-day suspension for non-compliance during a safety intervention. No hearing, no meeting, just a paper form and a quiet escort out the back exit of the school. As they walked through the staff parking lot, Elijah's hoodie was stained with cafeteria dust and dried blood near the collar. His backpack thudded against his back. He hadn't spoken since the arrest. Not one word. In the car, his mother glanced over. unsure how to start. You okay? He nodded, but the movement was small, unsure. She gripped the wheel tighter. Back home, the neighborhood was quiet. They lived in a modest duplex in northeast Memphis. Porch lights were still on. Garbage bins lined the curb. A normal Thursday for everyone else. Inside, Elijah went straight to his room. Shut the door. Locked it. His mother didn't knock. Instead, she opened her laptop and began typing. Emails, phone numbers, public records requests. She wasn't going to scream. She was going to document everything. Inside his room, Elijah lay on his bed, eyes open, heart racing. His hands still remembered the pressure of the cuffs. His body still tensed when he heard loud footsteps in the hallway. He wasn't afraid of Officer Holtz. He was afraid of how quickly it had all happened, how no one questioned it. No teacher said, "This is wrong." No adult asked, "Where's his pass?" They just watched it happen. He wondered if they even remembered his name. Later that evening, an email arrived from the school district. The subject line read, "Statement regarding today's incident." It was short. At Briarwood Middle, the safety of our students is our top priority. An isolated security misunderstanding was promptly resolved without injury. We appreciate our staff and local officers for acting swiftly and professionally. No name, no apology, no ownership, just language designed to erase Elijah from the picture. And in the comments section of the news blog that picked up the story, one line repeated more than any other. He fit the description. Elijah returned to school on Monday. He didn't want to. His mother had offered to transfer him or keep him home until the board meeting. But he said no, not because he felt safe, but because something inside him refused to vanish. He walked through the front doors of Briarwood Middle at exactly 7:58 a.m. Students stared. Some whispered. Others looked away. His homeroom teacher, Ms. Holloway, greeted him like nothing had happened. "Glad to have you back, Elijah," she said softly. He nodded. She didn't ask how he was. In the hallways, conversations paused when he passed. His locker had been moved, without explanation. His name tag was gone. The contents inside had been cleared out. He found his textbooks stacked in the lost and found. By third period, Elijah understood the new rules. He wasn't in trouble, but he wasn't exactly welcome either. Teachers avoided his gaze. Staff walked past without speaking. Even friends who used to joke with him at lunch now sat 2 tables away, unsure what to say, unsure who was watching. At 11:30, he entered the cafeteria for lunch. Officer Holtz was there, leaning against the wall, arms folded, watching, the same spot where Elijah had been tackled days before. His chest tightened, but he didn't flinch. He grabbed his tray and found a seat alone by the window. Ms. Jenkins, the assistant principal, walked by once, then twice, eyes flicking to his table. Finally, she approached. "Elijah," she said, kneeling slightly to his level. "If you ever feel unsafe, you can always come to the office." He looked at her. "Unsafe from who?" She hesitated. "I just meant in general. We take everyone's comfort seriously." He didn't respond. Because the truth was clear, they weren't protecting him. They were watching him. That afternoon, Elijah was called to the counselor's office. Ms. Deemer sat behind a desk covered in inspirational posters, "Kindness Matters," and "Your Voice is Power." But she didn't ask about the arrest. Instead, she spoke in gentle, practiced tones. "I wanted to check in. Sometimes, when there's a misunderstanding, it can affect how others treat you. How are your peers responding?" Elijah stared at her. "You mean how they look at me like I did something?" She smiled awkwardly. "I just want to make sure you feel supported." "Are they going to change the report?" he asked. She blinked. "What report?" "The one that says I was detained for noncompliance. Are they going to fix it?" Ms. Deemer glanced at her screen, then folded her hands. "That's something you'd need to discuss with administration." He stood up. "They said I fit a description, but there wasn't one." The silence in her office lasted too long. "Sometimes," she said carefully, "people make decisions under pressure. That doesn't always mean they're wrong, just cautious." Elijah nodded slowly. He opened the door. "I'm done talking to people who whisper mistake, but mean threat." And then he walked out. He didn't go back to class. He walked home in the rain. No umbrella, no call to his mother. When he reached his block, his neighbor Mr. Thompson, who'd known him since he was 7, was out sweeping his porch. But even he didn't wave. Just watched Elijah walk past, silent. As if he too had read the news. As if the words "fit the description" now lived in his mind, attached to Elijah's face. By evening, 2 new emails came in from the district. Both were labeled confidential statement, internal review ongoing. No apology, no names, just one line that stuck in Elijah's mind all night. We cannot confirm or deny whether protocol was breached. On Wednesday morning, Nina Myers received an automated message from the school board. Your request to speak at the upcoming disciplinary review has been declined. Comments may be submitted in writing. She read it twice, then closed her laptop and sat in silence. Across the room, Elijah sat on the couch, headphones in but no music playing. He'd barely spoken since Monday. At night, he slept with the door cracked open, just in case. At school, nothing had changed. He wasn't suspended. He wasn't accused of anything. But everyone looked at him differently. The librarian asked to check his bag, just him. The art teacher told him to sit closer to the front, for safety. Even his science group was reshuffled without explanation. He now worked alone. That afternoon, Elijah's mother showed up at the school without an appointment. She stood at the front desk, polite but unyielding. I want a meeting. With the principal, and Officer Holtz, and anyone else who was in that cafeteria. The secretary looked nervous. They're in classes or in meetings at the moment. I'll wait. 35 minutes later, Mr. Keller finally emerged from his office, adjusting his tie with shaking fingers. Ms. Myers, you can't just. I want to know why my son's file still says non-compliant, she interrupted. He glanced at the secretary, then back at Nina. There's an internal process. There was no description. There was no incident. My son walked into school. That's all. And he was cuffed in front of children. There should be no process. Just correction. The hallway fell quiet. Finally, Keller motioned toward the conference room. Inside, the blinds were drawn. The air stale. Look, he began, folding his hands. We're under pressure from the district. From legal. If we admit the officer overreacted, it opens us to liability. So you're protecting yourselves? He didn't answer. Nina leaned forward. You want this to go away quietly. You want us to be grateful you're not expelling him. Still silence. My son isn't your mistake to bury. Just then, Officer Holtz opened the door, uninvited, but clearly informed. Everything okay in here? Keller gestured awkwardly. Nina stood. You, she said, turning to Holtz, grabbed my son before asking a single question. Did you even radio for a description? Holtz shrugged. There'd been reports of trespassing in the area. He came in the side door. He had a signed pass. He didn't look like a regular student. The room froze. Nina stared at him. And what does that mean? Holtz didn't blink. I made a judgment call. No, she replied coldly. You made a profile. You saw a young black boy walking alone and decided he was a threat. Keller cleared his throat. Ms. Myers, please. But Nina didn't move. We will not be silent about this. If you won't clear his record, we will file a grievance. If you bury this, we will speak publicly. If you threaten us with policy, we'll bring proof. She held up her phone, already recording. Keller's eyes widened. Holtz took a step back. You're recording a private meeting. No, Nina said. I'm recording my son's defense, since no one else will. She turned and walked out. Back home that night, she showed Elijah the clip. He didn't say anything, but for the first time in days, he looked her in the eye and nodded. Because now he knew they wouldn't fix this. He'd have to do it himself. By Friday, Elijah had stopped waiting for anyone to defend him. At school, whispers turned into silence. No more hallway looks, only distance. Even the front desk secretary, who used to offer peppermints in the morning, now kept her eyes on her screen when he walked past. But Elijah hadn't been wasting time. Each night, after his mother went to bed, he sat with his Chromebook. He wasn't scrolling, and he wasn't posting. He was reading the Briarwood District Student Code of Conduct, the School Security Policy, the Memphis Juvenile Rights Handbook, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. He read every clause, every section, every footnote. By Saturday, he knew which policy Officer Holtz had violated. By Sunday, he could recite the district's suspension procedure, including the rule they'd skipped. Students shall not receive disciplinary markings without administrative review and parental representation present. They never called his mother. They wrote it anyway. That morning, Elijah printed 3 pages and highlighted a single paragraph in yellow. Then he folded them into his backpack and walked downstairs. His mother was in the kitchen, standing at the stove. The smell of eggs and butter filled the air, but Elijah's voice cut through it like cold wind. Mom. I need you to drive me somewhere. She turned. Where? Downtown. Education Board. Office 2B. She blinked. Elijah. They won't answer your emails. But according to district policy, every student is allowed one direct petition of administrative review if they submit it in person. She stared at him. He held up the printout. It's on page 14. They don't expect anyone to read it. But I did. She didn't speak for a moment, then nodded. Get your shoes. At 9:41 a.m., they entered the Briarwood district office. No cameras. No media. No shouting. Just a boy in a clean hoodie and a silent mother. They waited at the front counter for nearly 12 minutes. Then a woman named Mrs. Langston stepped forward, gray suit, neutral smile. Can I help you? Elijah didn't blink. Yes. I'd like to file a formal petition for review of misconduct, as outlined in Section 5, Subpart D of the Student Rights Agreement. Langston looked caught off guard. You're a student? He handed her the paperwork. Everything's signed. I'd like confirmation of receipt. She read the paper slowly. Her expression changed midway through the second paragraph. You compiled this? Yes. And I have copies of the video, timestamps, and the original attendance record proving I was excused. Langston glanced at Nina, who stood quietly behind her son. I'll need to call the director of compliance. That's fine, Elijah said calmly. According to policy, they're required to respond within 5 business days. Langston nodded slowly. She didn't smile anymore. Would you like a seat? Elijah shook his head. No, thank you. I just came to deliver the truth. He turned and walked out. No dramatics. No final words. Just proof. Back in the car, Nina stared ahead for a long moment before starting the ignition. Where did you learn all that? Same place they hide it, Elijah said. In the fine print. That night, the school still sent its daily robocall. Reminder, parent/teacher night is this Thursday. But something was different. At exactly 7:17 p.m., a new email arrived. From Langston, R. Subject, receipt of petition, urgent review initiated. It wasn't justice. It wasn't accountability. But it was the first time someone in the system had called Elijah by name, without suspicion. On Monday morning, Elijah returned to school with a quiet confidence. No one knew what had changed. But something in the way he walked, steady, unafraid, made the hallways feel colder. He passed Officer Holtz without slowing. The officer didn't speak. In homeroom, Miss Holloway glanced up when he entered, hesitated, then said nothing. The seating chart had been changed again. Elijah now sat by the door, alone, near the wall, as if he might need to leave at any moment. The whispers didn't return. This time, they had been replaced by something worse. Silence. Coordinated. Strategic. Controlled. His classmates didn't talk to him. His locker had no flyers. His desk was never partnered. Even group assignments quietly bypassed him, without teachers explaining why. At lunch, Elijah sat at a table by himself. No one joined him. No one even looked in his direction. This wasn't punishment anymore. It was containment. After last week's incident, he wasn't considered dangerous, just inconvenient. And inconvenient students were managed quietly. That afternoon, Ms. Deemer, the counselor, called him in again. He sat down, wordless. She tried. I wanted to check in again. I know you've taken some bold steps. That can sometimes isolate a student. He didn't respond. She shifted in her chair. We're not here to punish you, Elijah. But sometimes, when a student pushes too hard, it creates a climate. He tilted his head. A climate. Yes. One where people feel uncomfortable, even if no one's done anything wrong. He looked at her for a long time, then spoke. Is that what you think happened? That I created this? She sighed. I think it's complicated. That may be. No. It's simple. They made a mistake. And instead of fixing it, they're trying to erase me. She sat back. He stood. You don't have to protect the school from me. Pause. They're already doing that themselves. He left. That evening, at 6:13 p.m., his mother received an email marked Administrative Notice. Dear Parent/Guardian, we are concerned that Elijah is experiencing difficulty reintegrating into the classroom environment. To assist his social and academic recovery, we are recommending a voluntary transfer to a neighboring school with tailored support systems. This is not disciplinary. Below it, one line in bold. Please confirm your agreement within 48 hours. Nina called Elijah downstairs. He read it in silence, then folded the paper. They're not trying to help me. They're trying to move the problem. Which is you? She asked quietly. No, he said. Which is the truth? He walked to the dining table, pulled out his laptop, and opened a fresh document. Title: Timeline of Events. Briarwood Middle Incident. October 2nd to present. He began typing. Every date. Every name. Every policy. Every silence. He didn't post it. Didn't send it. Just wrote. Because the truth, once documented, couldn't be erased. And he wasn't done collecting it. By Tuesday morning, Elijah had rewritten his document 5 times. Not because it wasn't good, because it had to be undeniable. He cross-checked every policy citation, included timestamps from the school's security footage request, referenced the district response protocol, and compared it to how they treated him. Then he opened a new email to legal@briarwood.k12.tn.us. CC, complaints@usdoge.gov. Subject: Formal record of discriminatory detainment and retaliatory isolation. Briarwood Middle School. He hesitated only once, then clicked send. It was 7:42 a.m. By 10:13 a.m., Ms. Deemer called him to the office. This time, 2 other adults were present, Mr. Keller and a woman in a blue pantsuit who introduced herself as Ms. Harris, District Equity Liaison. Elijah didn't sit. Ms. Harris smiled politely. Elijah, I understand you've raised some concerns. He nodded. Good. That means someone finally read them. Keller cleared his throat. We don't want this to escalate unnecessarily. Elijah turned to him. Did you read what I sent? Keller shifted. I haven't yet. So you still haven't looked at what actually happened. Ms. Harris tried to redirect. We're committed to resolving this in a way that honors your experience. Elijah didn't blink. Then clear my record. The room stilled. You entered a false disciplinary action. You allowed Officer Holtz to detain me without cause. You wrote up a report that never mentioned my hall pass. Ms. Deemer spoke, softer. We understand your frustration. No, you understand your liability. His voice didn't rise, but the authority in it made Keller fold his hands. Ms. Harris glanced at the file in front of her. There will be a district-level review. There already is, Elijah said. The DOJ opened the complaint 32 minutes ago. They didn't speak. He leaned forward. This is not about punishment anymore. This is about the record. The truth. Ms. Harris nodded slowly. We'll need time. You've had time. Since the morning you left me bleeding on the floor. He turned to leave. If you won't fix the report, I'll publish the original. Keller stood. You're threatening the school. Elijah turned back. No, I'm reminding you the school lied. Then he walked out. He didn't cry. He didn't shake. But when he stepped into the hallway, the silence that followed him all month felt different now. Not empty. Nervous. At home that night, he refreshed his inbox. At 6:04 p.m., it came. Subject: Amended Conduct Report. Student Elijah Myers. The Disciplinary Code 3.4 Noncompliance has been officially removed from Elijah Myers' student record. We acknowledge procedural mishandling and will revise our internal practices accordingly. No apology. No names. Just a quiet retraction. Elijah stared at the screen. His mother entered, reading over his shoulder. She didn't say anything. She just placed her hand gently on his shoulder. He spoke without turning. They took it back. That's not the same as telling the truth, she said softly. He nodded. But it's the first time they stopped lying. Wednesday morning began quietly. No slips taped to lockers. No secret meetings. No whispers in the hallway. But Elijah felt it, the shift. Now that his record had been cleared, no one called him dangerous. Just difficult. In homeroom, Ms. Holloway asked him to stay after class. Her voice was gentle, but formal. Elijah, the principal would like to speak with you at 10 a.m. in the conference room. About what? He said you'll understand when you get there. At 10 o'clock sharp, Elijah entered the room. Inside were 3 people. Mr. Keller, Ms. Harris from the district, and a man in a charcoal suit he didn't recognize. The man stood. Elijah, I'm Mr. Trent. I work with the Office of Student Affairs. No handshake, just a folder. We've been reviewing your situation, and we're offering a proposal. Elijah didn't sit. Trent opened the folder. Given your initiative and self-advocacy, the district would like to nominate you for the Memphis Youth Equity Panel, a student leadership program. You'd be our first 8th grade appointee. Elijah stared at him. You mean the board that publishes monthly videos and never actually changes anything? Trent chuckled. It's a platform, and a chance to reframe your story. Keller leaned forward. It's a way to move forward, Elijah. Constructively. Elijah didn't move. He looked at Miss Harris. Why now? She smiled tightly. Because you've shown maturity. He shook his head. No. You're offering me a seat, so I stopped talking. The room stilled. Trent's voice hardened slightly. No one's silencing you. We're offering visibility. Visibility isn't the same as change, Elijah replied. Keller interjected. Elijah, if you decline this opportunity, the district may conclude that further dialogue isn't productive. He let the words hang. There it was, not a threat. A warning. Elijah spoke slowly. You put me in cuffs. You tried to suspend me. You pushed me into silence. Trent raised a hand. That's not how the district sees it. That's because the district never sees what it doesn't want to admit. Miss Harris stood. Elijah, this is a gesture of goodwill. He stepped back. You want goodwill? Publish the video from the cafeteria. Not just to me. To everyone. Keller stiffened. That's not in line with privacy policy. It's in line with the truth, Elijah said. He looked at each of them in turn. I don't need a spotlight. I need accountability. Trent closed the folder. Offer stands until Friday. Elijah turned and walked out. In the hallway, students moved around him. But something was different. He wasn't alone. Not supported. Not protected. But seen. A girl from science class, who hadn't spoken to him in weeks, passed him a folded slip of paper. He opened it. We watched. We know. Keep going. At home, he placed the invitation to the equity panel on the table. His mother read it. Said nothing. Then tore it in half. He smiled for the first time in weeks. The next day, the hallway felt colder than usual. Not because the air conditioning was stronger. Because word had spread, Elijah declined the panel offer. No one said it out loud, but teachers looked at him like he'd embarrassed the school. Even Ms. Jenkins, the assistant principal, gave him a strained smile during lunch duty, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. By third period, his name was back in the group chats. Why won't he just let it go? He's trying to get someone fired. He wants attention. But Elijah didn't respond. He'd already started writing something else. Not a complaint. Not a report. A speech. At 2:04 p.m., an email popped up on his screen. Subject, urgent, parent-student meeting requested. Elijah, please come to the principal's office with your parent by 3:30 p.m. today. We would like to resolve lingering concerns and clarify future expectations. When Nina arrived, they walked in together. Mr. Keller was waiting. So was Mr. Trent. And someone new. A district legal consultant. Her name was Ms. Avery. Her posture was perfect. Her eyes calculating. Thank you for coming, Keller said. No one smiled. We've received notice that Elijah intends to speak publicly during next week's school board open forum. Elijah nodded. I signed up. That's legal. Avery leaned forward. Technically, yes. But minors speaking about internal security events can raise complications. Nina spoke now. He's not disclosing private data. He's telling his own story. Avery adjusted her glasses. That story implicates staff and could invite unwanted media attention. Elijah blinked. Unwanted for who? Trent raised a hand. Let's be reasonable. You've already had your record cleared. You've made your point. I haven't made change, Elijah replied. Keller sighed. You're making this worse for yourself. Elijah turned his head. You already made it worse. I'm just refusing to stay quiet. Avery slid a document across the table. If you agree not to speak at the forum, the district is prepared to issue a formal statement acknowledging procedural missteps and promising internal review. Nina picked it up. Read it. Laughed once, bitter, short. So he stays silent, and you acknowledge something vague. Avery didn't respond. Elijah leaned in. I'm not asking for a gesture. I'm demanding the truth. Publicly. Keller raised his voice now. You are a student. This is a school, not a courtroom. Elijah stood. Then stop treating me like a defendant. He looked at them all. You want me quiet. But I already spoke. You're just pretending not to hear. And he walked out. That night, he uploaded a 2-minute video. No music. No effects. Just words. He read his speech straight to camera. On October 2nd, I was detained in my cafeteria without reason. They said I matched a description that never existed. When I asked why, no one answered. When my mother asked for justice, they sent us silence. When I demanded the record be cleared, they offered a leadership role, so I'd stop asking for accountability. I'm not angry. I'm not broken. I'm just not disappearing. No hashtags. No drama. Just truth. By midnight, it had 2,700 views, most from inside the district's IP range. Thursday morning, Elijah walked into school like any other day. No camera crews, no posters, no applause. But something was different. Not around him. Inside him. He had stopped waiting, stopped expecting, stopped asking anyone to see what they chose to ignore. In homeroom, Miss Holloway greeted him with a quiet nod. Her eyes flicked to the stack of printed essays on her desk. The top one had a yellow sticky note. Cafeteria boys gone activist now? Elijah didn't flinch. He took his seat. By second period, a teacher he didn't know pulled him aside. Mr. Carlson. History. I saw the video, he said simply. You did what adults around here should have done. Elijah nodded once. Nothing more. He didn't trust congratulations. That afternoon, he received a call slip. Report to Board of Education, room A101, 4 p.m. He knew what it was. The school board had accepted his request to speak. When he arrived, the room was almost empty. Just 8 members behind a long oak table. One microphone. No audience. He waited until they called his name, then stood. Alone. Calm. No paper. No phone. Just his voice. You don't need to imagine what it feels like to be profiled. You just need to admit that it happens. I didn't come here for sympathy. I came for truth. You cleared my record, but you didn't clear your conscience. I was treated like a suspect in my own school, then isolated for asking why. You offered me a seat on your panel to keep me quiet. But I don't want your seat. I want my name back. Silence. Not resistance, but discomfort. And that was enough. He stepped away from the mic. No applause. No response. Just his words, left behind like chalk on pavement. By the next morning, something unexpected happened. The school published a bulletin, not with his name, but with new language. Following a comprehensive review of internal safety procedures, Briarwood Middle will implement updated de-escalation training and revise its student detainment policies effective immediately. No mention of Elijah. But everyone knew. The following week, the counselor didn't call him. Officer Holtz was reassigned. The noncompliance tag was gone from his file. Teachers stopped rearranging their seating charts. He was still alone at lunch, but this time, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like space. Space he'd earned. One afternoon, as he packed his bag, a girl from math class, the same one who passed him the note, stopped by his desk. You ever think about law school? She asked. Elijah smiled faintly. No, he said. But I think law school should think about me. They laughed. Not loudly, but freely. And when he walked out the front door of Briarwood Middle, for the first time since October 2nd, no one followed him. No officer. No principal. No whisper. Just steps. Forward. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.